I was honored to be asked as the keynote speaker for this luncheon championing women's athletics at Eastern Kentucky University in Richmond. I'm Mayor Lloyd, Ireland. As you can see here, I am an orthopedic surgeon. I had the pleasure of taking care of Eastern Kentucky University all sports for almost 2 decades. I learned a lot from those student athletes, the faculty, and the athletic training staff. So I'm happy to give this talk on sports impact on this Kentucky girl, from Title IX to Olympics to orthopedic surgeon. I did my fellowship at the Hughston Clinic with Dr. James Andrews. I had done an orthopedic residency at the University of California, Irvine. After graduating from medical school at the University of Tennessee Center for the Health Sciences in Memphis, I grew up swimming and continued swimming into my collegiate days at Memphis State University. I was asked to come back and establish a practice in Lexington because the University of Kentucky football coach Claiborne asked, "Why don't our players who have knee surgery ever return to football?" And in the mid-'80s, there was a transition from arthrotomy, which means opening up knees, to arthroscopy, which is an improved way of taking care of joint injuries, such as joint injuries of the shoulder and the knee, when we put a small scope in the joint and then do things by triangulation and looking at a video screen. Less invasive, and players did get back more quickly. The rehab changed because it wasn't as associated with as much stiffness, but it still takes time to recover from surgery. And so the door was open because of this transition from open surgery to arthroscopy, and I was one of the early ones to learn arthroscopic techniques from Dr. Andrews. So he got me back to my hometown by giving me the experience, the opportunity to know about arthroscopies and how to take care of athletes and how to do those arthroscopies. And I returned to my hometown of Lexington, Kentucky, and established Kentucky Sports Medicine. This is the University of Kentucky, a sideline view from 1985 to 1996. I was the team physician for the University of Kentucky. These are some pictures of many years ago. It was really rewarding to come back and to be a female taking care of a Division I collegiate football team. That was the first that anyone had ever done that, and I was honored to have that bestowed upon me, but really I was just doing my job, and as long as I did my job, I was accepted by the athletes, the coaches, and certainly by the athletic trainers. This is me on the sideline in the lower right with Dr. Hughston, who founded the Hughston Clinic, and Dr. James Andrews. Coach Claiborne was that coach at the University of Kentucky who made the observation that his players weren't getting back after sustaining knee injuries. And he did embrace me, even though I was a female. And his quote in an article was, "Women are in everything now, industry, medicine, athletics. As long as they do their job, it's okay. So if you can show those you work with, everybody, that you do your job, and maybe even do it a little better than your competitors, then you will be accepted. But you have to have the door opened a little bit." And Coach Claiborne and the University of Kentucky did that for me. Because of this distinction as the first female to take care of a Division I football team, there was some hype and some articles. In fact, Hollywood came knocking, wanting me to do a series of me as the female physician, orthopedist taking care of the team. And I actually did go and talk to them out there, but what they ended up wanting to do is to pin me as against the wishes of the coaches taking players out and how I responded to that. So that didn't really work out for me. So there was no Hollywood in this, but basically I didn't feel like I was a trailblazer. I just wanted to take care of our injured UK athletes. My introduction to Eastern Kentucky University was through Bobby Barton, who was the athletic trainer, and he is now the athletic trainer emeritus, been president of the NATA 2 times. And this is a picture of Bobby Barton on the sideline. In 1988, he came to me to ask if I would be his team physician. His team physician for a long time, orthopedic surgeon Chuck Verink, had asked the university whether they would give an increase or give any stipend, give money, because his malpractice was higher because he was taking care of these elite EKU athletes. When the university president, Funderburk, said no, Dr. Barton in August was left without an orthopedic surgeon to take care of his team. So again, another door was open, cracked open or wide open when Bobby Barton asked me to be the team physician for Eastern Kentucky University. And I accepted and have been a strong supporter of EKU students, faculty, and really grew my practice by a lot of people from Richmond wanting to see me and sign me up as their orthopedic surgeon. So it was a win-win from the get-go. In the lower picture is one of our meetings that we have, and Dr. Barton is there with athletic trainers. The 2 gentlemen in the back row on the left, Angelo Colosimo, one of my former fellows, takes care of the University of Cincinnati, and Tom Bird is an orthopedist in Nashville, and we did fellowships together. So fellowship and getting together is a very important part of our continued education and mentorship of each other as our peers, but also being a mentor to students and residents and those that you can give back to, I think is a very rewarding part of being a team physician and an orthopedic surgeon. On the EKU sideline, I learned a lot from Coach Kidd. Bobby Barton and Roy Kidd were a team for 38 years. It's very unusual, reportable, and I don't think it'll ever happen again for a coach and an athletic trainer duo to have such a great relationship and such a relationship of great longevity and friendship and taking care of each other and also the teams. The coach was the coach. The athletic trainer was the keeper of the medical team, and we worked very well together, Dr. Barton and I, to serve as a unified effort to do the best for the student athlete. We never were asked to compromise by Coach Kidd of putting an injured player back. He knew how to coach his players, and we know how to take care of the injured and sick student athletes. Another conference that we had with my former fellows coming back, had 6 former fellows back for an EKU game, and we had great camaraderie, mentorship, and shared a lot of stories. And as we go through in our careers, it's always nice to think back of those good times when our residents and fellows were able to take care of EKU in that environment. Those are cherished memories, and they learned a lot about taking care of student athletes. So I was the team physician at UK from 1984 to 1996, and at EKU for not quite 2 decades, from 1988 to 2006. It was a privilege. It was busy time, but it was a privilege and honor to serve as team physician. I'm now continuing to practice in orthopedics, but not doing as much sideline coverage and trying to teach students, whether it's physical therapy, athletic training, residents in orthopedic surgery, primary care, what I have learned from taking care of these student athletes on the sideline. It's always good to give back. There was a resolution from Eastern Kentucky University in 1990 regarding a scholarship fund that I started. So I began the Kentucky Sports Medicine Clinic, Dr. Mary Lloyd Ireland Endowed Scholarship Fund at EKU, to support the education of outstanding students majoring in sports medicine. And to this day, we still have that scholarship fund for athletic trainers. We're hoping to expand that and get some of my former fellows to work with me to support scholarly activities in athletic training. So this was a proclamation, and I was commended for doing this. Thank you, EKU. I've had 22 fellows while I was at Kentucky Sports Medicine. This is Scott Jackson, who was the first fellow, and he took care of Eastern Kentucky University. He's not really a bonehead, but he is an orthopedic surgeon. Sue Ott is on the right, and the fellows that worked with EKU really did learn a lot from the student athletes and the athletic trainers and the coaches, and they carry that experience to this day. My motto, we aim above the mark to hit the mark, and that's what I taught the fellows and continue to teach those who want me to teach them. In teaching the fellows, we did a lot of wet labs. We did these with the student athletic trainers as well, and this is an arthroscopic picture of doing an ACL reconstruction in the lower right. We had a lot of fun times and some intense times on sidelines taking care of injured and ill athletes. But the cool thing is we all come together and have that camaraderie and that commonality of Eastern Kentucky University and the relationship with Coach Kidd, as well as Bobby Barton and his host of athletic training students and the people that he has introduced us to. So I thank EKU and Bobby Barton for that opportunity. Coach Roy Kidd, an amazing coach, an amazing person to know and see his coaching. Coached at EKU for 38 years, and this is his statue that is at the top of the football field, as it should be, and this was when he gave a speech and when the statue was unveiled. I founded Kentucky Sports Medicine 34 years ago. My partners at Kentucky Sports Medicine were Dr. Adam Smith and Dr. Robert Grant. Previously, I also had Dr. Yvonne Satterwhite, who worked with me and moved back to Georgia. The Kentucky Sports Medicine building has now been changed to be an ophthalmologist building, but for about 30 years, it was the center for our taking care of student athletes, athletic individuals, and older individuals, weekend warriors. This was at the corner of Alumni and New Circle Road, so it was Kentucky Sports Medicine in the upper right. Then when I joined UK 10 years ago, UK Healthcare Sports Medicine put new signage on the building. And about 4 years ago, UK Healthcare Sports Medicine moved to Turfland on Harrodsburg Road, where I still practice. Sports is a very positive experience. I was fortunate to be allowed to compete in sports. It wasn't like the parent in my situation drove me to compete in sports. I begged my parents to allow me to compete in swimming year-round. I think sports can be a sounding board to be a more accomplished person in your career, and also to allow you to compete in a male-dominated specialty such as orthopedics and sports medicine. So when I begged my parents to allow me to swim year-round, I was 11, and this was an article that was in the paper, Fierce GLSA Competition Uncovers Hidden Spark in Mary Lloyd, Ireland. So I'm the one second from the left there. And I enjoyed competing at Greater Lexington Swim Association, where I swam through high school and then continued to swim in college, which in the early 70s was pretty unheard of. Most girls quit competing in college. I've been asked to write several chapters and articles about the female athlete. And it's kind of interesting because I don't really see competing in athletics as a problem, but in Pearl's The Athletic Female, they wanted me to write a chapter on problems facing the female athlete. So what I wrote in the chapter, catch a rising star, catch it if you can. These lines from a children's song should encourage limitless but achievable goals for youngsters. As a child, I was encouraged to play as hard and run as fast as I could. If I beat the boys, that was okay. I didn't have a problem beating the boys, whether it was a basketball shot or running faster. So run as fast, compete as hard as you can, and beat the boys. That's okay. My father gave me a 7-iron when I was 7 years old, and he was my golf coach, if you will. I never took any other lessons, although maybe I should have. And when playing golf with my father, I was always expected to tee off at the men's tees. I don't think I knew there were women's tees. And it was only later when I was playing in scrambles, usually with 3 men in orthopedic scrambles or fundraisers, that I was encouraged to use the women's tees. And my drive was often used because the women's tees obviously were closer to the green. So the message I learned from my father was tee it up from the same tee. Don't expect any head starts in sports or career or in life. And that's what I've lived my life motto as. That's my father on the left, James E. Ireland. I was a class of 1970 at Sayre School. I did enjoy playing basketball. I could jump a lot higher then than I can now. We also had field hockey and track and swimming, which I competed in. As a swimmer, I was able to hold every record for AA swimming, which was 8 different records. You could compete in 2 specific events every year. So over 4 years, I held the record in every event. I just thought that'd be kind of cool to do that, so I did it. Model had a great program, Richmond School, and Coach Don Combs' daughter was an excellent swimmer. And when I first met the athletic director, Don Combs, or when Bobby Barton brought up that I was going to be their team doctor, Mr. Combs said that he really did remember me because I would always beat his daughters in swimming. I'm not sure that that endeared me to Mr. Combs, but he did remember me. And again, the EKU staff embraced me with open arms and allowed me to be their team physician for 18 years. Dan Lichty was the coach of Model, and he still is in Richmond teaching water aerobics and other things to people of all ages. So my records were, I just thought, why not do that? And it worked out, and I did hold all the records. This was another article that was on the front page. So this is when we used to cover high school sports more in the paper. So the Courier-Journal and also the Herald-Leader had those articles. And I did go for broke and got all 8 records. Cool. In the Sayre School yearbook called The Pillars, when I graduated in 1970, again, which was right at the time of Title IX, our class will was as follows. And if you look at my name, I, Lloyd Ireland, leave the girls' sports department helpless. I thought that was pretty funny. It's good to go back and look at your yearbooks. Pictures as well as what's written. So Title IX, federally funded schools do not discriminate on the basis of gender in the provision of any educational activities, including athletics. This was big for girls and women who wanted to continue to compete at the collegiate level. These were a couple of articles that appeared in our local paper. I continued to swim into college, and I was hopeful to make the Olympics as a swimmer. In 1968, the Olympics were in Mexico City, and I had missed those Olympic trials because I'd had back surgery of a spinal fusion. But I was back in the water and was hopeful to make it to the 72 Olympics, which were in Munich. And I did try out, but didn't make it, so this was one of the articles. On the right is my Sayre School fellow senior, and we had a Teens of the Week written about us. This is as I was competing at the national championships in Austin. This was in the early 70s, and there were some communities that wouldn't allow the more exposed swimsuits that we were wearing, called skin suits like this, to be shown on TV. When I competed in 1973 in Moscow, my parents couldn't watch me compete because we had on some more exposed swimsuits, so they were illegal to be broadcast in certain areas of the Bible Belt. So I tried out a couple times for the Olympics, made it to the trials, but I didn't make the team. So maybe I set my goals too low. Maybe I set my goals to make it to the trials and not actually make it to the Olympics. So I had no medals, didn't make it to the Olympics. And at that time, the East Germans had a very good gymnastics and swimming team. And if you look at Cornelia Ender here in the middle, it does look like that she is a lot bigger than I was, even though I had a big neck. But it later came out that they were using performance-enhancing drugs like steroids, even though those athletes may not have known those drugs were what they were being given. Cornelia Ender won many gold medals. Shirley Babashoff was an Olympian, and she got a bit disappointed and down on herself because she always got silver, but maybe it was because of the drugs that the East Germans were on that they were competing and swimming faster and doing better in the sport of swimming. Exposed later on, unknown in the 70s. So in 1973, I was made the World University Game team for the U.S., and it was really a thrill to compete for our nation. Walking into a stadium, competing for your nation is a real high in my life, and it was also really cool to be in a foreign country with wearing the U.S. Emblem on our warm-ups and competing for our team. Both men and women as athletes will go to any extreme when competing or trying to get into the Olympics. Sometimes they won't expose what some medical problems they have are. Florence Griffith-Joyner died of some type of an arrhythmia or a heart seizure on an airplane. She may or may not have known about that. In 1988, in Seoul, Korea, some of these women perhaps look very masculine, and perhaps some of these were on anabolic steroids, but mandatory testing did not exist until after 1988. So I finally made it to the Olympics. Barcelona in 1992 as a member of our U.S. medical team. Took care of all sports, but I was assigned to men's and women's basketball and men's and women's gymnastics. This was the first time we had a dream team for men. It was a great experience to finally make it to the Olympics. Third time's a charm. This was the opening ceremonies, which were just unbelievable. The Catalan people put on quite a show. This was with the women's USA basketball team. We got the bronze medal. We did have pre-Olympic training camps in Montpellier, France. That was cool to travel and be there. After the Olympics, we had an opportunity to go to the White House, where the 41st President George Bush and Barbara Bush entertained us, and we got to meet them and had a picnic on the lawn. So that was very, very cool. When we look at Olympic competition, women in the history were excluded from the Olympics. And the original founder of the Olympics, Pierre de Coubertin, called the Olympics an exaltation of male sports. And why were women excluded? They were not athletes, bodies controlled by nerves and muscles, and their children would risk being left motherless. At least that's de Coubertin's thought. Fortunately, eventually, women were allowed to compete in the Olympics. If you think about the modern Olympic Games, Mary Lou Retton gymnast Joan Benoit won the first marathon that women competed in LA in 1984. So the LA Games had two superstar females of Mary Lou Retton, think of her on the Wheaties box, and Joan Benoit, the first winner of the marathon where women could compete. Great role models. 1992 U.S. women's gymnastics team. I did have the opportunity to take care of them. None of those women ever complained about anyone abusing them. As we now know, Bella Carolla was the coach then. His wife has also been the coach. And these are our gymnasts in the lower right. I did take care of the women's gymnastics team in 1992. None of those young ladies said anything about any abuse. It really sickens me that Larry Nassar was able to abuse girls for such a long period of time under the guise of being the team physician for gymnastics. I think we as healthcare providers must pay attention and report. Fortunately, finally, Larry Nassar was discovered, but this is child abuse and needs to be reported early on. He will now remain in jail for the rest of his life, but he should never have been able to continue the abuse that he did. Child abuse must be reported, and if we as healthcare providers don't do it, we should not be doing what we're doing and have the trust of our student athletes. So we all must serve and protect our athletes from abuse. Picture of Larry Nassar in the lower portion of this, but also eating disorders. We must discover those, and if an athlete we feel has an eating disorder, should get them into the proper support system so that they can have this treated early on. Early diagnosis of female athlete triad is very important. Hormonal, nutritional, and osteoporosis, bone health are all affected by female athlete triad. Expect the unexpected. You never see it coming. There are some things in life that we never see coming. I just wanted to mention a couple of textbooks. Option B, Cheryl Sandberg lost her husband from a heart attack while he was exercising in Mexico. So she never thought that she would lose her husband at such a young age. He was the CEO of SurveyMonkey, and she is the CEO of Facebook. So this is a book that she wrote with Adam Grant, Facing Adversity, Building Resilience, and Finding Joy. Recommend that. A lot of it is how we respond to those bad things, which can happen to good people. Definition of a mentor: a wise and trusted counselor or teacher. Peer mentors instill confidence, enhance social skills, and enforce reliability. In Greek mythology, Timocles and his mentor. What is mindfulness? It's a quality or state of being conscious or aware of something. A mental state achieved by focusing one's awareness on the present moment, while calmly acknowledging and accepting one's feelings, thoughts, and bodily sensations. I think in our educational process, we need to be more mindful and practice mindfulness. This is something that's going to take a while to catch on in the surgeon's mind, but I think we do need to understand what mindfulness is. It can make us more sensitive and better doctors and healthcare providers. The Mayo Clinic School of Continuous Professional Development practices mindfulness. On the left here is it mindful, as you can see in the person on the left, or is it mindful on the right? So I think we'll see more and more of this in our education process at many different levels, mindfulness. And if you're a healthcare provider optimizing provider potential, we've got to beat burnout, and some of that is becoming more mindful. This is another book, Better, by Atul Gawande. And I think this is another good resource for healthcare professionals. And this is a surgeon's notes on performance. He also wrote Complications, which is another eye-opening book. Another book that I recommend is The Creativity Cure. This is co-authored by a married couple. Carrie Barron is a board-certified psychiatrist, psychoanalyst, and she is married to Alton Barron, who is an orthopedic surgeon, hand surgeon. They have just relocated from New York to Austin, Texas, where there is a new medical school that is really preaching mindfulness and things that are in this Creativity Cure. So in this Creativity Cure, the recommendations are do what energizes, re-energizes you. Make time for yourself and follow your passion. This makes you a better person and a better professional in whatever profession that you're on. So there are similarities in sports to life: competition, caring, attitude, courage, success. I think we learn that as athletes. And if we remain passionate and can make our profession be as important as our sports were as children, then I think that there are a lot of similarities in these arenas, sports and life. In the early 70s, Title IX, 1972, gender equity in sports. Then Roe versus Wade, women's right to abortion in 73. Billie Jean King and Bobby Riggs. She beat him in tennis in 1973. That was big at that time. And in 1974, the Little League lost their suit to keep girls out of Little League, and girls can play Little League baseball. The suit was won by girls in 1974. Billie Jean King. Here she is, raising the Wimbledon trophy. Ever since the day I was 11 years old and I wasn't allowed in the photo, tennis team photo, because I wasn't wearing a skirt, I knew I wanted to change the sport, and she really did change the sport and bettered females in athletics. I had the opportunity to meet Billie Jean King at the Women's United Soccer Association First Championship. There we are in the lower right. I served as the medical director of WUSA, and I'm shown here with Soon Win, who is the FIFA Player of the Year. It was indeed an honor to do that and a lot of fun to be their medical director and decide what surgeries could be done or not done. Soccer athletes have a lot of articular surface problems in their knees, and a lot of surgery is needed. Don't forget your family or your friends. In the top, we're at a golf course in Paintsville, Kentucky, doing a coach's clinic, and we had a lot of fun playing golf with fellow athletic trainers Sue Stanley, Dave Jacobs, Pete Williams, and Al Green, who looks like a Tylenol capsule. And then this is my family down below. Don't forget your family. Spend time with your family. Thank you, EKU, for allowing us to care for your student athletes. It's been an honor and a privilege, and has made me the physician and the woman that I am today. I was inducted into the KHSAA Hall of Fame in 2010. This is my mother giving me my medal. That was indeed an honor. I was inducted, I think, more for my athletics than my career, but maybe for both. Thank you very much for your attention. I do have a website. It's myname.com that has several lectures and some vacations and some of the photos that I've done, as well as publications. So please feel free to visit that website. And thank you very much for your attention.